I think this would sell for about $20,000.
What? Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I was going to be cool. I had no idea. I thought maybe $800.
Most people dream of becoming millionaires. Few expect an old chair, cabinet, or writing desk to make that dream possible. Yet that's exactly what happened on Antiques Roadshow. Welcome to our channel. Today we're counting down the most valuable antique furniture discoveries ever appraised on the show. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for more amazing hidden treasure stories. Not every hidden treasure begins with gold or precious gemstones. Sometimes, the greatest value is found in furniture that has quietly remained in one family for generations. This sofa, armchair, 2 side tables, and lamp look like ordinary pieces inspired by the American West. But experts immediately recognize something far more significant. Every item was designed by Thomas Molesworth, one of the most influential figures in American interior design, and originated from one of the most celebrated commissions of his career.
Moses Annenberg, who was a publishing mogul in Philadelphia, came through my part of the world in Wyoming, stopped in Beulah and had trout. Best trout he'd ever had, or thought it was wonderful. Eventually it came up for a sheriff's auction, and my stepfather bought it. The furniture was from like the 1930s, and my folks bought it probably in the late 50s.
Thomas Molesworth became the defining name behind the Western rustic style. He blended natural wood, leather, antlers, and motifs inspired by the Wyoming landscape into furniture that was both rugged and refined. That distinctive approach continues to make his work highly desirable among collectors today. What made this group even more remarkable was its provenance. Every piece had been created specifically for the Annenberg Ranch, a major commission that originally included around 250 custom-designed furnishings. Features such as richly figured burl wood, natural mica lampshades, and signature Molesworth details remained intact, giving experts little doubt about their authenticity.
This collection, the Annenberg collection, had approximately 250 pieces in it.
I probably have about 40 of the pieces. I have another table, I've got some of the lamps, and some of the beds, and a few other pieces.
Finding even one surviving piece from the Annenberg Ranch is uncommon. Discovering dozens still owned by the same family is extraordinarily rare. Most collections of this scale were dispersed through auctions decades ago, making intact groups like this especially important to both collectors and design historians.
The couch, even in the condition it's in, I think the fact that it's from the Annenberg Ranch will add a dimension of value to it. But I would guess the couch to be worth, at auction, about $40,000 to $50,000. The chair, probably $30,000 to $40,000. The table, probably worth $10,000 to $15,000. The little table, about the same, $10,000 to $15,000 at auction.
The lamp alone carried the value of an entire home in many parts of the country. Yet the real significance of this collection went beyond the price. Nearly a century after they were created for a legendary Wyoming ranch, these furnishings had remained together, preserving a rare chapter in American design history. To collectors, they are far more than antique furniture. They are surviving pieces of one of Thomas Molesworth's most iconic commissions. At first glance, this cabinet appears to be elegant but remarkably understated. There are no elaborate carvings, no gilded details, and nothing designed to command immediate attention. Because of that, many people could easily walk right past it without realizing they had just overlooked one of the finest examples of late 18th century English furniture. Only after a closer inspection did the experts begin to notice the subtle details that revealed it was anything but ordinary.
It belongs to a friend of mine, and it was inherited by her late husband in 1940s, and I presume it had been in the family for quite a long time.
Be interesting to see how far back in that family.
The late 18th century marked the golden age of English cabinet making. As exotic hardwoods arrived from across the expanding British Empire, satinwood quickly became one of the most sought-after materials among the wealthy. Its naturally luminous golden color and remarkable depth made it especially prized. while its high cost and challenging nature meant only the finest craftsmen could work with it successfully.
And you could actually walk past it. You know, it's not, it doesn't stand and say something until you do stop and look. And then one starts to realize that these oval panels, this is satinwood, which was an extremely expensive exotic veneer from the last quarter of the 18th century.
The longer the cabinet was examined, the more exceptional it became. Delicate stringing in rosewood, ebony, and boxwood blended almost seamlessly into the satinwood veneer, while the mahogany interior displayed the same meticulous workmanship. These hidden details often reveal far more about a cabinet maker's skill than its outward appearance. Its overall quality also reminded the appraiser of leading designers such as Thomas Sheraton and George Hepplewhite, and even prestigious workshops like Eames and Mayhew, renowned for producing furniture for Britain's aristocracy.
So what at first looks like just a nice, well-designed cabinet or cupboard is in fact an exceptional piece of furniture. So goodness knows, this was made by an important maker. It could be someone like Eames and Mayhew.
That is what makes this cabinet so remarkable. Its value comes not from extravagant decoration, but from rare materials, masterful veneering, and craftsmanship worthy of one of England's finest furniture makers. Together, those qualities transformed what seemed like an ordinary cupboard into a piece any serious collector would be proud to own.
If one went into a good gallery, where you'd have to go to buy such a piece as this today, you'd have to give between £25,000 and £30,000.
Well, I think she'll be rather startled.
I hope she'll be pleased with it.
For decades, this cabinet quietly stood in a family home, never needing elaborate decoration to prove its worth. It simply waited until someone with the right knowledge recognized what had been there all along. Sometimes the greatest antiques are not the ones that dominate a room, but the masterpieces whose true brilliance is visible only to those who know exactly what they are looking at. At first glance, these two slender display stands seem surprisingly modest. They are neither oversized nor heavily carved like many other Victorian furniture pieces. That was exactly why their owners bought them. They simply admired their elegant proportions and balanced design. But hidden inside one small drawer was a detail that completely changed the story, revealing that these seemingly ordinary stands were anything but ordinary.
We just had them about 3 years. And,
Oh, really?
Yes, we saw them in a local antique shop. We thought they looked so neat and well proportioned, and then we realised that they were Gillow. We just liked them, thought they were very attractive.
These are whatnot étagères, a style of display stand that became especially popular in well-to-do Victorian homes during the late 19th century. They were designed to showcase clocks, porcelain, small sculptures, and treasured keepsakes. Because elegance mattered more than size, cabinet makers focused on perfect proportions, refined craftsmanship, and flawless finishing. As the appraiser examined them more closely, he noticed contrasting ebony details, crisp decorative edging, and consistently high-quality workmanship throughout. Yet the most important feature was still hidden from view, tucked away inside one of the drawers.
And when we open the drawer, there you are. You've got Gillow & Co., the magic name. The magic name.
GILLOWS was one of Britain's most prestigious furniture makers, building its reputation from the 18th century onward. The company furnished grand country houses and aristocratic estates, earning lasting respect for exceptional craftsmanship. Today, the Gillow name represents far more than a maker's mark. It is a guarantee of quality, authenticity, and historical importance. Interestingly, the two stands are not perfectly identical. Small differences reveal that they are a matched pair, handcrafted rather than mass-produced, making them even more appealing to collectors.
Any maker's name on a piece of furniture adds to the value, not only the historical value, but also the monetary value. And in this case, of course, Gillow is probably the greatest increase in any name on a piece of furniture, certainly in the 19th century.
In the antiques market, two pieces of furniture can be nearly identical yet differ dramatically in value simply because of the name behind them. With Gillows, buyers are acquiring not only a beautiful Victorian furnishing, but also a genuine piece of Britain's furniture-making heritage.
If we take this little piece here, that would cost today in the region of probably £4,500 to £5,000. A pair, even a matched pair, would be certainly 22,000.
A single Gillow & Co. stamp completely transformed the value of these display stands. What had been purchased simply because they looked elegant ultimately became a pair worth more than £22,000. It is another perfect reminder that in the world of antiques, the name behind a masterpiece can sometimes be every bit as valuable as the piece itself. Not many people would postpone surgery just to attend a local auction, but that was exactly what this owner did after becoming convinced that something extraordinary was waiting for him there. At first, it was only a suspicion that he had spotted a design by Charles Eames. The moment he opened a drawer and found the original label, that suspicion became certainty. But that was only the beginning. The real story behind this cabinet was about to make it even more remarkable.
I'm actually postponed a hernia surgery to attend the auction. When I went to preview the auction, I suspected it was Eames, and then when I looked in the drawer, I knew it was, and so I sat through the whole auction, and I won the bid.
Charles and Ray Eames transformed the way America viewed modern furniture after World War II. Working with Herman Miller, they created designs that combined simplicity, functionality, and timeless style. This cabinet belongs to the Eames Storage Unit, or ESU, introduced in 1952 as a modular storage system that blended steel, wood, and colorful panels. Today, it remains one of the defining icons of mid-century modern design. Yet, the famous Eames name was not the only reason the appraiser became excited. A few seemingly minor details completely changed the story.
The cabinet is designed by Charles Eames for the Herman Miller Furniture Company. In the original catalog from 1952, it was known as the ESU series.
Oh.
ESU standing for Eames Storage Unit. This exact model was known as the ESU 420N.
What made this cabinet especially important was that it belonged to the first production series. Herman Miller soon redesigned the model because the original legs proved vulnerable during shipping. As a result, first series ESUs with their original legs, factory label, and outstanding condition have become exceptionally scarce. For collectors, that single detail is enough to transform both the rarity and the value of the piece.
The reason I know this is from between 1950 and 1952 is that in 1953, this entire cabinet was redesigned. This version, which is commonly referred to as the first series version, has these original legs.
Among mid-century modern collectors, originality is everything. An ESU that still retains its earliest components is considered far more desirable than one that has been altered or restored. By now, only one question remained. Was postponing surgery really worth it?
How much did you pay for it?
$15.
In 1952, there's few of them that survive in good condition. I would call this one of the best survivors I have ever seen. I think this would sell for about $20,000.
From a $15 auction purchase, this cabinet had grown into a $20,000 collectible thanks to its iconic design, rare first series construction, and exceptional preservation. At first glance, this appears to be nothing more than an old writing desk worn by centuries of use. There are no elaborate carvings or dramatic features demanding attention. But experienced appraisers know that the most understated pieces often hide the greatest stories. And the moment this bureau desk was opened, a remarkable journey stretching back more than 300 years began to unfold.
This piece of furniture was made about 1720, and I think it was made by a cabinet maker who was already well established because he was using materials which were fashionable 20 years earlier.
Crafted around 1720, this bureau desk comes from one of the finest periods of English cabinet making. What impressed the expert was not simply its age, but the confidence of the craftsman behind it. Rather than following the latest fashion, he continued using materials that had been popular decades earlier, a choice that reflected the assurance of an established master. At the time, bureau desks served as both writing tables and secure storage for important documents and correspondence. But the most fascinating part of this example was still hidden from view.
There it is, the well, which of course was accessible only when you open the top. Secret papers and so forth inside. But in here you have laburnum veneer.
Beneath the writing surface lay rare laburnum veneer, a material seldom found in surviving furniture of this period. Combined with burr yew, walnut, and exceptionally precise veneering, it revealed the extraordinary skill of its maker. Even after more than 3 centuries, the craftsmanship remained remarkably well preserved. Yet the appraiser still had not reached the discovery that excited him the most. One hidden drawer was about to reveal an even more personal connection to the past.
There's a secret drawer. We've got to have a look at that because this is a very unusual feature. You see that pop out?
Yeah.
The man that wrote that was working in 1720. I mean, it's magic.
I've never seen
Absolutely
that.
wonderful.
Inside the secret drawer were pencil marks left by the original cabinet maker while assembling the desk in 1720. They were nothing more than simple workshop notes, yet they created an extraordinary connection between the craftsman and the person opening the desk more than 300 years later. Authentic details like these are exactly what collectors hope to find. By this point, only one question remained. What value would be placed on a piece carrying so much history?
Altogether, a quite exceptional piece of furniture which is still usable today. It looks beautiful today. It's a specialized piece. And to replace it, you'd have to think somewhere in the region of 15 to 18,000 pounds.
Valued at between 15,000 and 18,000 pounds, this bureau desk proves that the worth of an antique extends far beyond its age. Its hidden compartments, rare veneers, and even the cabinet maker's original pencil marks have preserved a remarkable chapter of English furniture-making history. That is why, after more than 3 centuries, this desk continues to impress both experts and collectors alike. Not every design icon is created solely by the person whose name appears on the finished product. Sometimes, the most important ideas come from talented designers working behind the scenes. These 2 chairs tell exactly that story. They remained part of one family's home for many years, but it was only when they appeared on Antiques Roadshow that the remarkable history behind them finally came to light.
I brought 2 chairs that were designed by my father, John Pyle, when he worked for George Nelson in the 1950s in the design studios in New York City. He designed these chairs. He designed also the steel frame furniture line.
During the 1950s, George Nelson became one of the defining figures of American mid-century modern design. Behind his success, however, stood a talented team of designers, and John Pyle was one of the people responsible for creating many of the furniture pieces that carried the George Nelson name. One of those designs is now known as the pretzel chair. Its flowing, curved frame gave it a distinctive appearance, but those elegant curves also made it extremely difficult to manufacture with the technology available at the time. Yet the chair that impressed the appraiser most was not the famous pretzel chair. Sitting beside it was something far rarer.
When your dad designed both of these chairs, it was called a laminated chair. Very few of these are made.
That was the big challenge, was how to mass produce this curve.
The second chair was not a production model at all. It was a prototype built by John Pyle during the development process. Experimental pieces like this were usually discarded once production began, making surviving examples exceptionally rare. And just a few small details were enough to prove that this chair had never been intended for the marketplace.
This is a sample chair your dad made. When I saw these screws in the top, I knew that this chair your dad made as not to be sold as production, and it's not finished, it's not varnished.
The exposed screws and unfinished surface revealed that this was still a working prototype from the design studio. To collectors, those unfinished details are not flaws, but valuable evidence of how an iconic design evolved before reaching its final form. By now, only one question remained. What would a prototype this rare be worth today?
The pretzel chair, the laminated chair, using period terminology, would be worth about $2,000 to $3,000 at auction, and it might bring $4,000 because they never come up. This chair, the prototype, could bring $10,000 to $15,000 at auction for the side chair.
While the production pretzel chair was already worth several $1,000s because of its rarity, the prototype was valued at an impressive $10,000 to $15,000. Its significance came not only from its scarcity, but also from preserving the work of John Pyle, a gifted designer who helped shape mid-century modern furniture despite rarely receiving public recognition. Sometimes, the people behind the spotlight leave the greatest legacy of all. Today, a sofa table is often seen as nothing more than a decorative piece placed behind a couch, but when this design first appeared in the late 18th century, it served a very different purpose. That is why, with just one look at the construction beneath this table, the appraiser was able to determine almost immediately when it had been made, and that was only the first discovery.
But it's a sofa table. Now,
Yes.
do you know why it's called a sofa table? And they were not invented until the last quarter of the 18th century. So we know that this one is prior to 1810 because of its structure underneath.
The earliest sofa tables were designed to sit close beside a sofa, allowing their owners to read, write letters, or enjoy tea without leaving their seats. As the design evolved over time, many structural details changed. The original construction of this example revealed that it had been made before 1810, making it one of the earlier surviving versions of this classic furniture form. Yet its age alone was not what impressed the appraiser the most.
It's made of the most wonderful cut from mahogany. And normally sofa tables have the grain going across. This one goes along because it's such a wonderful stretch of timber. But it's faded to this gorgeous color which you could never recreate.
The tabletop was crafted from an exceptional piece of mahogany. Instead of placing the grain across the surface to conserve material, the cabinet maker chose to run it lengthwise, allowing the beauty of the wood to take center stage. After more than 2 centuries, the surface had developed a rich, warm patina that modern finishing techniques simply cannot reproduce. And the story of the person who carefully preserved this table would make it even more meaningful.
Is it a family piece?
Yes, it is.
Right.
It belonged to my greatly beloved great-aunt Prudence.
Passed down through the family from the owner's beloved Aunt Prudence, the table carried far more than fine Scottish craftsmanship. It also preserved generations of family history. For collectors, that combination of documented family provenance, original condition, and outstanding workmanship is becoming increasingly difficult to find. By this point, only one question remained. What would a sofa table with all of those qualities be worth today?
When they're as good as this, then this type of sofa table will make between £10,000 and £12,000.
Gosh.
With an appraisal of £10,000 to £12,000, this Scottish sofa table proved that its greatest value extended far beyond its age. Its original design, magnificent mahogany, and remarkable family story combined to make it an outstanding example of early 19th century Scottish furniture. That is exactly why a table that appears so simple at first glance became one of the most memorable discoveries on Antiques Roadshow. Not every impressive appraisal turns out to reflect an item's true value. Sometimes, even the owner senses that something doesn't quite add up. That was exactly the case with this writing table. After more than 30 years of ownership, they had once been told it was worth as much as £35,000. But when it arrived at Antiques Roadshow, the experts quickly discovered one detail that completely changed the story.
It, to me, is a very classic part of English furniture history. 1820s, late Georgian. I didn't know that. Regency, right at the time when things were very, very, very elegant indeed.
Made around the 1820s, this table is a classic example of Regency furniture, a period when British design drew strong inspiration from ancient Greece. Its sturdy trestle base, Anthemian decoration, and lion's paw feet all reflect the Greek Revival style that was highly fashionable at the time. The beautiful mahogany only added to the craftsmanship on display. Yet as the appraiser examined the tabletop more closely, he noticed the one feature that mattered most.
This was never designed to have a leather top, and somebody has cut it out quite nicely to let a leather top in flat. It would have been originally all this lovely mahogany, and that is going to make a huge difference to the value.
The leather writing surface may have made the table more practical, but it was never part of the original design. Originally, the entire top would have displayed a single uninterrupted sheet of mahogany, chosen to showcase the natural beauty of its grain. Removing that original surface meant losing one of the cabinet maker's most important design features. For collectors, a seemingly small alteration like this can have a surprisingly large impact on value.
I have a feeling that it might be Scottish.
Is it mahogany?
Beautiful mahogany, very, very nice indeed.
Even without its original top, the table remained highly desirable because of its exceptional mahogany, elegant Greek Revival design, and outstanding craftsmanship. Those qualities alone made it a remarkable surviving example. By now, only one question remained. After taking the altered tabletop into account, what was its true value?
Minimum of 10, possibly 12,000.
Yeah.
What did you pay for it then?
When I bought it, I paid £600 for it.
In the end, the Greek Revival writing table received an appraisal of £10,000 to £12,000. Although that was far below the earlier estimate of £35,000, it still represented an extraordinary increase from the owner's original purchase price of just £600. The story also highlights one of the most important lessons in the antiques world. Age and beauty certainly matter, but originality is often the factor that ultimately determines an object's true value. At first glance, this chair hardly looks like a piece worth thousands of pounds. In fact, the very first thing the appraiser noticed was that part of its structure had been replaced during a relatively recent restoration. For many antiques, that would usually be disappointing news, but this time, that small detail became the beginning of a completely different story.
So instinct always says turn a chair up when you first look at it, and you can see here quite clearly where the cross bases here have been replaced. So it's a nice, honest replacement.
What pleased the appraiser was the honesty of the restoration. The new sections were never intended to imitate the originals, but simply allowed the chair to remain usable while preserving almost all of its historic structure. A closer look revealed carved acanthus leaves, gracefully curved arms, and elegant blind fretwork, unmistakable signs of a high-quality English armchair from the mid-18th century. Yet its craftsmanship was only part of what made this chair so remarkable. The family story behind it proved even more memorable.
Well, my husband, when he was a child, remember his grandfather sitting in this chair, and apparently it belonged to his own grandfather before him. Eventually, we found it 3 years ago after my father-in-law died in the room.
And so I had a soft spot for it, so I kept the bits.
The chair had been passed down through generations of the same family. By the time it was rediscovered, it had fallen into pieces and could easily have been thrown away. Instead, the family chose to save every fragment simply because it had belonged to someone they loved. That single decision preserved a piece of furniture with nearly 3 centuries of history. And as the appraiser studied its design more closely, another surprise emerged.
Thank heavens you've saved it, because 20, 30, 40 years ago it might have been thrown away. This style is really much, or quite a little bit early. It predates Chippendale. There's somebody called de la Cour who did a book of engravings, of designs.
According to the appraiser, the chair actually predates the famous Chippendale period. Its rococo curves and carved decoration reflect design influences from early 18th century pattern books, while the most historically important components have survived in their original form. That originality is exactly what collectors value most. By now, only one question remained. What would a chair that had come so close to being lost forever be worth today?
Chairs like this in original condition are worth a lot of money. I think you've got to insure it for £6,500, £7,500, something like that.
With an insurance valuation of £6,500 to £7,500, this mid-18th century mahogany armchair proves that its greatest value lies not in the restored sections, but in the remarkable original craftsmanship that has survived for nearly 300 years. Had the family not decided to keep every broken piece, an outstanding example of English furniture might have disappeared forever. That is what makes this one of the most unforgettable discoveries ever featured on Antiques Roadshow. Not every valuable piece of furniture is made from exotic hardwoods or has an elaborate appearance. This rattan furniture set was purchased for only $300 and still showed clear signs of age and wear. Yet one small detail hidden beneath the chairs immediately caught the experts' attention and changed the way they viewed the entire collection.
The furniture is, my understanding, it's made by the Wakefield Rattan Company in Boston, Massachusetts, sometime prior to 1897. I purchased it from a friend of mine a few months back, and I gave her $300 for the 3 pieces.
Those original labels confirm that the pieces were made by the Wakefield Rattan Company, one of the most important names in American furniture before it became part of Heywood Wakefield. During the late 19th century, woven rattan furniture became highly fashionable because it was lightweight, durable, and elegant. Beyond the material itself, the set also featured finely woven rattan and distinctive stick-and-ball construction, showcasing the exceptional craftsmanship of the period. But even a famous maker was not the most remarkable part of this story.
They've almost always been refinished or stripped or painted, but these have wonderful original color, which is very appealing to collectors.
What impressed the appraiser most was the remarkable originality of the set. Most rattan furniture from the same era has been repainted, stripped, or heavily restored over the years. These pieces, however, had retained their original finish and an almost flawless tabletop. For collectors, preserving those authentic surfaces is often far more valuable than making an antique look brand new. By this point, only one question remained. What would a furniture set bought for just $300 be worth today?
Because of how good these pieces are, even though the condition is not perfect,
Right.
their color, the completeness, the extraordinary form of all of them, I would say a $5,000 retail price would not be out of the question.
Although the set still showed some signs of wear, the Wakefield Rattan Company furniture received a retail value of approximately $5,000 thanks to its original labels, untouched finish, and outstanding craftsmanship. From a $300 purchase, it became a perfect reminder that in the world of antiques, the smallest surviving details often make the biggest difference. That is exactly why this seemingly ordinary rattan furniture set became one of the most memorable discoveries on Antiques Roadshow. Not every treasure makes an impression at first glance. Sometimes, a small table or an old decorative box can hold a richer story than the most luxurious antiques. This collection proved exactly that, with each piece revealing an unexpected detail that even experienced appraisers rarely encounter.
My grandmother inherited it from her first husband. He, we believe, was a masseur to royalty and high society.
How very colourful.
At the time of King Edward VII,
Right.
who was then, at that time, Prince of Wales.
The small table immediately stood out because of its beautifully executed marquetry set against a rosewood surface. Carefully arranged pieces of contrasting wood formed intricate decorative patterns, reflecting the remarkable craftsmanship of 19th century European artisans. But the greatest surprise was hidden inside. A cleverly concealed writing cabinet transformed what appeared to be an ordinary occasional table into a rare multifunctional design. And that was only the first discovery. The next object would take the story back almost 2 centuries further.
What we have here is a silk embroidered casket. Each panel would have been embroidered separately and then applied to the wooden carcass underneath. These were, to all intents and purposes, a lady's combination beauty case and filofax. In the 17th century, they kept everything in here.
Yeah. The silk embroidered casket once served as a personal keepsake box for a wealthy woman in the 17th century. Each embroidered silk panel was completed separately before being carefully mounted onto a wooden frame, a process that demanded exceptional patience and skill. Even more remarkable, the vivid colors and embroidered scenes have survived in outstanding condition after hundreds of years, turning the casket into both a practical object and a miniature work of art. Its extraordinary preservation was exactly what made the experts view it so differently.
They are becoming very sought after by collectors. People realize how rare they are. So few of them about, particularly in this sort of condition. I would really be happy if you were going to insure it for about £25,000.
With an insurance valuation of around £25,000, the casket demonstrated that true value is not measured by size, but by rarity, craftsmanship, and exceptional originality. Together with the remarkable marquetry table, these two pieces showed that the smallest antiques often preserve the greatest stories. That is precisely what made them two of the most memorable discoveries ever featured on Antiques Roadshow. Not every graduation gift is a watch or the latest piece of technology. For this owner, the most memorable gift was a piece of furniture more than 200 years old, discovered in an antique shop in Huntsville, Alabama. At first glance, it looked like an elegant writing desk. Hidden inside, however, was a clever mechanism that immediately captured the attention of the appraiser.
I brought my metamorphic library table. It was found in an antique shop in Huntsville, Alabama. My parents just thought that it was cool and it's something that I would like, and so they gave it to me as a graduation present.
The quality of its construction quickly revealed that this was an English Regency piece from the early 19th century. Beautiful veneers, a leather writing surface, and striking crotch mahogany with its distinctive flame-like grain all pointed to furniture made for an affluent clientele. But fine materials alone were not what made this desk so extraordinary. Its real secret appeared only when it began to transform.
But you mentioned it was metamorphic. Why don't we show what this table's really about?
Sure.
What a fascinating piece.
And you flip that back, and you push these little wooden pieces to lock in the arms.
Metamorphic furniture is designed to change function through ingenious mechanical construction. When closed, this piece serves as a refined writing desk. With only a few simple movements, it transforms into something entirely different. That combination of elegance and practicality is exactly why collectors continue to prize furniture like this today. And the biggest surprise came in the final stage of its transformation.
And if we slide this down, you end up with a great set of library steps.
Yep.
You've got an oak interior which provides great strength.
A way to reach all of your...
Within seconds, the desk unfolds into a sturdy set of library steps supported by a strong oak interior, making it practical for reaching books on tall shelves. The design perfectly reflects the creativity of Regency cabinet makers, who combined multiple functions into a single elegant piece without sacrificing style. By now, only one question remained. What would such an ingenious design be worth today?
You know, a New York auction house in the context of a library sale, I could easily see placing an estimate of $3,000 to $5,000 on it.
Awesome.
Not bad, right?
Not bad at all.
That's quite a graduation gift.
It is.
With an estimated auction value of $3,000 to $5,000, the Regency Mahogany Metamorphic Library Steps prove that its true worth extends far beyond its mahogany or its 2-century history. Its ingenious transforming mechanism stands as a lasting testament to the imagination and craftsmanship of Regency furniture makers. What began as a thoughtful graduation gift became one of the most fascinating and memorable furniture designs ever featured on Antiques Roadshow. Not every flea market purchase is worth only a few dollars. This sideboard was originally bought simply because the family needed a practical piece of furniture. For a time, it even served as a changing table for their first baby. Years later, however, that familiar cabinet would reveal a story no one in the family had ever expected.
This is a piece that I purchased at a flea market in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota in about 1969 or 1970. And we bought it so that we would have a change table for our firstborn baby. I have pictures of my daughter at 6 months sitting in a bathtub on top of this buffet.
From the very first details, the appraiser recognized that this was no ordinary sideboard. It reflected the craftsman style of Gustav Stickley, one of the leading figures behind America's arts and crafts movement in the early 20th century. His furniture became known for its clean lines, natural materials, and outstanding craftsmanship rather than elaborate decoration. But the detail that confirmed the cabinet's true identity came from something the owner had discovered only shortly before bringing it to the show.
This antique dealer down there had several buffets of different types, and he wanted to clean out his antique store because they were taking up so much room, so he said we could have any one we wanted for $25.
The original paper label on the back confirmed that the sideboard had been produced by Craftsman, a Stickley company, sometime between 1905 and 1910. That small piece of paper established its origin and made the cabinet far more significant to collectors. Even so, it was not the feature that impressed the appraiser the most. What truly stood out was how well the piece had survived after more than a century.
That's a really good way to look at the finish and have a sense of whether it's original or not. If I were to see this come up for auction today, I would expect to see an auction estimate of between around about $3,000 and $5,000.
Its remarkably original finish allowed this Stickley Craftsman sideboard to retain much of its character after more than 100 years. For collectors, originality is often far more valuable than heavy restoration. Purchased at a flea market for just $25, the cabinet is now estimated at $3,000 to $5,000. It is a perfect reminder that some of the most memorable treasures on Antiques Roadshow began as ordinary pieces of everyday family furniture. Not every unusual detail on an antique reduces its value. When the owner bought this chest of drawers, he became concerned because the drawers appeared to be constructed from pieces of reused timber. He worried that the furniture might have been altered or repaired at some point in the past, but that very detail was exactly what caught the expert's attention.
I bought it 6 years ago in Stowe, and I was a little concerned when I got it home to notice that the drawers seemed to be made out of recycled pieces of timber. I wonder whether it's entirely original.
The experts quickly confirmed that these were not later replacement pieces. The timber had been reused when the chest itself was originally made, a practice that was not unusual in 18th century English cabinet making. However, the true source of those boards was far more remarkable. They had once belonged to an interior that was significantly older than the chest itself. And when the second drawer was opened, that hidden history finally began to emerge.
Well, you should see the second drawer is even more interesting, in as much as it's more brightly coloured.
That's fantastic. These panels were 150 years old.
The panels had once formed part of a room dating from the Tudor or early Elizabethan period in the 16th century. Generations later, they were reused inside a chest of drawers already more than 200 years old, turning an apparently ordinary piece of furniture into an object containing several different layers of history. Yet even that was not the discovery that excited the expert most.
And I've seen sometimes some decorations have pigment. We know that they used to paint a lot of furniture in the 1540s through to the 1580s. But never have I seen the pigment.
The rarest feature was the survival of the original pigment, preserved in remarkably pure condition after more than 4 centuries. Traces like these rarely survive, making it possible for experts to imagine the appearance of a Tudor room hundreds of years ago. By this point, only one question remained. What were those ancient panels actually worth?
And that won £1,000.
It surprised me.
It's very exciting. Very exciting.
The 2 historic panels alone were valued at approximately £2,000, far more than the owner had expected when he purchased the chest. A piece of furniture more than 280 years old had accidentally preserved timber almost 2 centuries older than itself. That unexpected discovery transformed the chest into one of the most impressive and memorable stories ever featured on Antiques Roadshow. At first glance, this chair looks like nothing more than a child's toy, but it was never designed for children to use. Instead, it is a salesman's sample, a miniature version created to present a new furniture design before it ever reached the market. That unusual purpose is exactly what has made it such a rare collectible today.
My great-grandfather worked for Gimbels and was a buyer, and he would travel overseas and bring back items like this to see if they would want to sell it in their catalog. And this is an item that he brought back in, I believe it was 1936 or 37.
Rather than transporting full-size furniture, retailers used miniature versions like this to evaluate a product's proportions, appearance, and functionality. Because they were created only for sales demonstrations, most salesman samples disappeared once they had served their purpose. That is why surviving examples have become highly desirable among collectors. But the chair's importance goes well beyond the fact that it is a salesman sample. Its design tells an equally fascinating story.
This piece was designed in the mid-1930s, has a great machine age feel to it. It's curved, it's sleek, it's slick, it's just smooth. But this is really reduced to its most finite level.
Designed in the mid-1930s, the chair perfectly captures the spirit of the machine age, with its flowing curves, sleek lines, and minimalist form. During this period, designers moved away from heavy ornamentation and embraced clean shapes that emphasized function and modern living. Even in miniature, this chair reflects the bold design philosophy that defined an important chapter in furniture history. That is also why it appeals to several different groups of collectors today.
One, it's a salesman sample, and there's lots of people that collect salesman samples. The other collecting group that it would appeal to would be modern collectors. And modern collectors today, you're probably looking at, for this chair, in the $2,000, $2,500 range, somewhere around there.
With an estimated value of around $2,500, this salesman sample lounge chair proves that size has very little to do with significance. Its appeal comes from the combination of retail history, machine-age design, and the rarity of a presentation model that has survived for nearly a century. Once considered too expensive to succeed as a child's toy, it has become one of the most fascinating pieces ever featured on Antiques Roadshow. At first glance, this appears to be nothing more than a small mahogany table with an elegant design, but within seconds the expert recognized that its quality went far beyond its modest appearance. It was not the size of the piece that made it remarkable, but the extraordinary level of craftsmanship behind its construction.
It is absolutely superb.
Yes.
The quality of the original piece of furniture is outstanding, and the condition that it survived in, as I say, is also outstanding.
The first feature that stood out was the mahogany veneer covering the tabletop. Carefully arranged in symmetrical sections, the wood creates a striking flame figure across the surface. Achieving such a balanced pattern required the cabinet maker to select and position each sheet of veneer with exceptional precision. It is the kind of workmanship normally found only on furniture of the highest quality. But the detail that truly surprised the expert was hidden somewhere most people would never think to look.
But the stunning thing to me, if we could just turn it over, just lay it on its back, I've got the back leaf, is that the back of the leaves is also veneered in exactly the same way. It's not quite such good veneer. Oh yes, you can still see the segments of the way it's veneered.
Even the underside of the extension leaves had been veneered using the same careful technique. On many ordinary tables, these hidden surfaces received only the simplest finish. Here, however, the maker devoted the same level of attention to areas that would rarely be seen. That single detail revealed that craftsmanship had been valued above convenience or cost. Those same construction details also helped the expert determine exactly when the table had been made.
I'm sure that it must be between 1830 and 1840. I've never seen a piece of furniture quite like this, and my guess is that in a sale it's going to make, oh crumbs, £2,000.
Based on its design and construction, the expert dated the table to around 1830 to 1840, during the transition from the late Georgian period into the early Victorian era. Its outstanding state of preservation, combined with such exceptional craftsmanship, gave it an auction estimate of around £2,000, and possibly even more. Sometimes the details that almost no one notices are the clearest proof that a true masterpiece of furniture making has survived the passage of time. At first glance, these two chairs look like modern furniture, with bold colors and unusual shapes. But behind them stands the name of Wendell Castle, one of America's most influential furniture designers. Even more remarkable, their owner has a direct connection to the original production of these pieces, making their story even more compelling.
My husband, about 30 years ago, was working for Wendell Castle in his woodworking studio. And then my husband and his cousin broke off and started their own company. What they did is fiberglass work, and then Wendell approached him to make the chairs for him.
That connection immediately gives the chairs special significance. Wendell Castle became famous for designs that blurred the line between furniture and sculpture. During this period, he began experimenting with fiberglass, allowing him to create smooth, flowing forms that were difficult to achieve with traditional woodworking. These molded chairs were produced only for a short time, making surviving originals much harder to find today. Each chair also represents a different direction in Castle's creative vision.
This chair is called the molder chair. It's got this wonderful molder-like shape. And then this yellow example is called the Castle. And there were some knockoffs made in the 80s, and there may even be some illegally made now.
The Muller chair stands out with graceful curves that appear to have been molded from a single continuous form, while the yellow Castle chair makes a bolder statement through its striking color and sculptural design. Because these models became so well known, numerous copies appeared over the years, making authenticity one of the most important factors for collectors. Fortunately, the history of these chairs gave the appraiser a very clear answer.
But since you acquire these directly from the maker, we know that these are original. Let's just tilt it up and take a look underneath. I would say colorful examples are probably about $1,200 to $1,800. The black one maybe a little bit less.
Wow.
Because they came directly from the company that manufactured furniture for Wendell Castle, there is virtually no doubt that both chairs are authentic. That clear provenance makes them especially desirable to collectors. The colorful examples are valued at around $1,200 to $1,800, while the black chair is worth slightly less. Not every collectible needs centuries of history behind it. Sometimes, marking an important moment in design history is enough to earn a lasting place on Antiques Roadshow. At first glance, this seating system looks like a collection of worn foam blocks that have faded with age. But the moment the appraiser heard the name Roberto Matta, it became clear that this was no ordinary piece of furniture. Behind its unconventional appearance is the work of a world-renowned artist and one of the defining furniture designs of the 1960s.
What we have here is a set of furniture called Melit that was produced by Knoll International.
Okay.
I think it was in the years 66 to 68. This is all thanks to my mom. She had studied architecture and design, and she was familiar with the name of the designer and the furniture company.
Melit was produced by Knoll International, one of the most influential names in modern furniture design. What makes it especially remarkable is that it was designed not by a traditional furniture maker, but by the Chilean surrealist artist Roberto Matta, whose paintings now sell for millions of dollars. He brought his artistic vision into furniture design, creating sculptural seating elements that could be rearranged and combined in countless ways. That bold concept helped make MOLESWORTH an iconic design of its era.
There's an example of this seating system at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. There's one at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and they're written up and described as an important part of the 60s.
The fact that MOLESWORTH is part of the collections at the Philadelphia Museum of Art and the Museum of Modern Art in New York confirms its importance in 20th century design history. Although this particular set shows tears, stains, and years of everyday use, its historical significance remains unchanged. Even so, its condition still has a major impact on its market value.
Sets like this retail in perfect condition for about $3,000 or $3,200. But unfortunately, in this condition, with the staining, for about half of that, about $1,200 to $1,500.
In perfect condition, a Malate seating system can be worth around $3,000 to $3,200. Because of the wear and staining, this set is valued at approximately $1,200 to $1,500. Yet for this family, its true value goes far beyond the appraisal. It is not only an iconic design by Roberto Matta, but also a cherished part of their childhood memories. That combination of artistic importance and personal history is what makes this one of the most memorable stories ever featured on Antiques Roadshow. At first glance, this appears to be nothing more than an old wooden table, but with a simple lift of the tabletop, it transforms into a traditional monk's bench. What immediately caught the expert's attention, however, was not the clever design but the centuries-old carvings across its surface. They suggested that this piece could be preserving a much older history than its outward appearance would ever reveal.
Looking round, I can see some very early pieces of carving on what is traditionally known as this monk's bench. So describing a piece of furniture which first looks like a table, you lift up the top, and it turns into a seat.
The family has owned this bench since they were newly married during the Second World War. At a time when new furniture was almost impossible to buy, they spent nearly all of their wedding money to bring it home. They never imagined that decision would preserve such an extraordinary piece for decades. The biggest surprise came only after the expert examined the carved panels more closely.
This piece here of carving here is very early. Certainly early 16th century, could be late 15th century. 1480, 1520, that sort of period. It's absolutely wonderful.
Those carvings were not originally made for this monk's bench. They were most likely salvaged from older furniture or architectural pieces before being incorporated into the bench at a later date. As a result, this single piece brings together several different periods of history, from the late 15th century and the 17th century to the Victorian era. For collectors, that layered history is exactly what makes it so fascinating.
I think this is one of the best examples of the period of 1850 to 1870. Now, they still have a market value at the time. Your £10 has certainly turned into, today, the best part of £2,000.
The bench was originally purchased with almost the couple's entire wedding fund. Many decades later, that modest investment has become an antique valued at around £2,000. Yet its greatest worth extends far beyond the appraisal. This monk's bench demonstrates how wood from different centuries can be brought together in a single object, transforming an ordinary piece of furniture into a remarkable chapter of European furniture history. From the very first glance, this bar commands attention. Its mirrored panels, gleaming surfaces, and bold geometric design immediately set it apart from ordinary furniture. What makes it even more intriguing is that there is no maker's name, no company label, and no designer's signature anywhere on it. Even so, its distinctive appearance was enough for the appraiser to recognize it as a remarkable example of American Art Deco design.
This belonged to my father. We know that he got it in Aspen, Colorado in 2001, and there was a receipt with it, but it has no name, no company, nothing. He liked bright and shiny things, and this was his favorite thing in the world, so that's all I know about it.
Without a label, every clue has to come from the piece itself. From its dramatic form, reflective surfaces, and overall craftsmanship, the appraiser immediately connected it to Art Deco. the movement that reshaped American interior design during the late 1920s and 1930s. It celebrated bold geometry, luxurious finishes, and eye-catching designs that were meant to become the centerpiece of any room. That is exactly why this bar makes such a strong impression, even without the name of a famous designer attached to it.
French, the Germans, the Europeans in general started doing modern in about 1900, 1901. And we, the Americans, didn't come to modern to really the late 1920s or the early 1930s. How we discovered modern was through Art Deco.
Inside, the bar features mirrored panels and built-in lighting that create the dramatic visual effects so closely associated with the period. Although its maker remains unknown, the quality of its construction shows that it was once an expensive piece of furniture. For collectors, exceptional design can sometimes be just as valuable as a famous signature.
I thought he overpaid for it. I don't know what it was, but we'll see.
He was very close.
Right.
At auction today,
yes,
this piece would probably bring $2,500 to $4,500.
Okay, cool.
The owner's father paid about $3,000 for this bar simply because he loved its bright, reflective appearance. Today, the appraiser believes it would bring $2,500 to $4,500 at auction. More importantly, it remains an outstanding example of the Art Deco movement that helped define American interior design. Sometimes, a piece does not need a famous name to tell an extraordinary story. Its design alone can capture the spirit of an entire era. At first glance, this may seem like nothing more than a small chest of drawers that has remained in the family for many years. But on the back are several lines of old handwriting that record part of its journey through towns in Suffolk centuries ago. To an expert, marks like these can be just as valuable as the furniture itself, because they preserve details of how the piece once traveled and changed hands.
At Mr. Cutler's in Sproughton, that's near here.
Yes, that's right.
To be left at Mr. St. A, we don't know Mr. St. A, at the Golden Lion in Ipswich. Isn't that wonderful? Of course, any bit of information like that on the back of a piece of furniture in that lovely old writing adds tremendous interest.
This chest of drawers was made near the end of the 17th century, around 1690 or 1700. What impressed the expert most was its compact size and remarkably attractive condition after more than 300 years. That is unusual for English furniture of this age, since many comparable pieces have been heavily repaired, altered, or rebuilt over time. But the most important feature is the decorative woodwork covering its surface.
Bearing in mind this little chest was made around about 1690, 1700. To get one as small and compact as this in such lovely condition is really quite unusual. And you use it every day?
Yes, I do, yes.
Good.
The chest is decorated using a technique known as oyster veneer. Small sections of wood were carefully cut to create oval shapes resembling oyster shells, then arranged into balanced, symmetrical patterns across the surface. This was a prestigious English decorative technique during the late 17th century, requiring great precision, patience, and craftsmanship. Those handmade details are exactly what make surviving examples so desirable to collectors today.
Well, I think I should, because on the open market, this would cost you between £12,000 and £15,000.
Although it is still used every day, the chest is now valued at approximately £12,000 to £15,000. For the expert, the answer was not to hide it away, but to continue using and caring for it as previous generations had done. From the faded handwriting on the back to the carefully arranged oyster veneer on the front, this small chest remains a vivid example of the craftsmanship, durability, and long history of English furniture. At first glance, this credenza makes an immediate impression with its tall Gothic columns, elaborate wood inlay, and unmistakably Victorian appearance. But the dark brown color seen today does not reflect how vibrant it originally looked. When it was first made, its decorative details would have appeared in vivid shades of green, yellow, red, and orange, turning the piece into a dramatic focal point within the room.
What a fantastic piece of furniture. Victorian furniture at its very best. And it's Gothic too, isn't it? Great columns coming down, and then these panels of marquetry. This is hairwood, which is sycamore dyed with oxide of iron, which would have been green.
The surface is decorated with marquetry, a technique in which different veneers are carefully cut and fitted together to form intricate patterns. Dyed hairwood, bright amboina, and Gothic Revival architecture show that this was once a high-quality piece of furniture, created to display both exceptional craftsmanship and social status. However, Victorian furniture became deeply unfashionable after the Second World War. That made the decision to buy this credenza for £25 at the time surprisingly bold.
I've had it about 10 years, but my mother had it. She bought it just after the last war. £25.
Did she really? My goodness. Well, it was a brave buy, you know, £25 just after the war was a lot of money for what was then unfashionable furniture.
But the most important detail was still hidden inside. The credenza is stamped Lamb and Manchester, something rarely found on 19th century English furniture. This mark not only identifies the maker, but also immediately increases the piece's appeal to collectors.
It is actually stamped Lamb and Manchester. Now that immediately improves the interest to a collector because, curiously, the English very rarely stamped and signed their furniture. So you've got a piece of furniture worth something as a Victorian credenza, and then you have an added value because of Mr. Lamb's name on it and the signature.
Although some of the brass fittings are now missing, the expert believed that excessive restoration was unnecessary. Its true value still lies in the original veneer, the marquetry, the Gothic design, and the authentic Lamb of Manchester stamp.
Do you have it insured?
Well, just with the general household insurance.
I would insure it for £4,500.
Once dismissed as unfashionable furniture and purchased for only £25, the credenza is now recommended for insurance at £4,500. Yet its most memorable value lies in the way every layer of wood, every faded color, and the small stamp hidden inside continue to tell the story of 19th century English design. At first glance, this appears to be nothing more than a small piece of Chinese porcelain with a familiar decorative style. But the image of a ship painted across its surface immediately reveals that it was never an ordinary mass-produced bowl. This is what's known as a privateer bowl, made in China during the 18th century as a special commission for the owner of a privateer ship.
Well, it's what's called a privateer bowl, and it was made actually in China in the 18th century on the instructions of the owner of a privateer ship. And here we've got the ship, and it's very interesting to look at this one because it's got the Union Jack and this rather black hull.
Bowls like this reflect a period when European merchants and ship owners sent their own designs to Chinese porcelain workshops to create highly personalized pieces. Rather than displaying ordinary decorative patterns, they often featured the owner's ship, national flag, or other personal symbols. One of the most fascinating details is the ship's hull. It was originally painted in silver, but after more than 2 centuries, the silver oxidized and gradually turned black, creating the appearance we see today.
This probably dates from about 1760, 1770. But I mean, that is remarkable actually to find a pair of these very rare privateer bowls still together since the 18th century. The damage is a problem, and you can do better than that.
What makes this discovery even more remarkable is that both bowls have remained together for over 250 years. For 18th century porcelain, finding a matching pair still intact is exceptionally rare. Although some damage has reduced their market value, they continue to preserve an important story from the age of maritime trade linking Britain and China.
A perfect pair of these must be worth £5,000 or £6,000, but they are certainly, for insurance purposes, worth at least £2,000.
Really? Gosh.
If they had survived in perfect condition, this pair of privateer bowls could be worth £5,000 to £6,000. Even with their existing damage, the experts still recommended an insurance value of at least £2,000. What once seemed to be a simple decorative bowl has become a lasting witness to 18th century maritime history, proving that even a small porcelain vessel can preserve the story of a ship and the voyages that cross the world's oceans. At first glance, this sideboard has the graceful appearance typical of late 18th century furniture. But after only a few moments of examination, the expert recognized it as a rare example of Scottish Sheraton, crafted around 1785 to 1790. Passed down through the same family for generations, it still retains the distinctive qualities that collectors admire most.
It was left to me by my grandmother. She died in 1947. But both families originally came from New Galloway, Kirkcudbright, that sort of area.
The The Scottish Sheraton style is known for its balanced proportions, elegant lines, and beautifully executed veneer work. Rather than relying on heavy ornamentation, cabinet makers carefully selected veneers with striking grain patterns and arranged them into naturally symmetrical designs, creating a refined sense of luxury. But the feature that truly sets this sideboard apart is something most people would never even notice.
And that is the most wonderful thing, because just imagine drawing that, let alone making it. The man who made this was a master craftsman, and the man who designed it was a master.
Viewed from the front, the legs appear to be simple tapered squares. Moved to the side, however, and their true diamond-shaped form is revealed. Achieving that effect required remarkable precision in both design and execution, making it a clear sign of an exceptionally skilled cabinet maker. Details like these are what separate an attractive antique from a genuine masterpiece of craftsmanship.
Well, if you wanted to replace this sideboard today from a good, and it would have to come through a good agent, a dealer, a gallery, you'd have to pay round about £25,000 for it.
How much?
25,000.
Really? Good heavens.
More than 2 centuries after it was made, this sideboard is still regarded as one of the finest examples of Scottish Sheraton furniture. What began as a cherished family heirloom has become a remarkable showcase of the craftsmanship, design, and enduring quality of late 18th century Scottish furniture.